this video, I'll be showing you how to scan the market to identify buy and sell opportunities. Take that list and compare it against a backtest to see how well your stocks have performed against your security over time. This will help improve the odds of success of your trade. With that, let's go ahead and go into MetaStock. This workflow really allows us to be able to develop and find trades that are powerful, because what this allows us to do is find trades that are happening today through the Explorer, test those strategies to see which of them works best against the strategy, and then identify and walk through our trade. So it's a very powerful workflow to use as part of your trading. So what we actually do with this one is we start in the Explorer to identify our trades. So we're going to scroll down here and let's continue on with the MACD as our theme. So we're going to choose the MACD buy signal. What we're going to do then as well is let's go ahead and choose again the the NASDAQ 100 and the S&P 500. So we'll be doing that list. We'll load minimum records. We'll use the current exchange time. So we'll use all of our standard settings. Let's go ahead and start our exploration and identify which of this list is giving us our signal. Now, as described in the last video, again, I'm only doing 527 because there's a combination of these two lists together. So we can really narrow that down and just look at the lists that are the stocks that are singular to those lists. So you can see we're rejecting quite a few. We're rejecting about 96%. So we're still going to have a few opportunities that we can use as part of our back testing as we go through this. So we're almost done. We've been through most of them, and we can now then look at our list to see which ones match our criteria. Okay, so I have a list here, a fairly good list of probably about 10 to 15 stocks. So what I can do now is, instead of going through and opening up each of these charts, looking at the expert, looking at the indicator to see what's going on, I can now just take this list and test it specifically against the MACD to see which one of these performed the best. It saves me a lot of time in trying to analyze each individual security because the system tester can do it for me. So let's actually just close this report and go directly to the system tester. So the system tester now allows us to check our expert. So we're going to check the MACD just as we did before. And I accidentally typed up there, so let's take that out. Now, what makes this very easy is, instead of trying to remember each of those individual stocks that I ran a test that I got from my scan, I actually have a checkbox down here that I can use, this results of last exploration. So there's 19 stocks that were result there. And if I just check that box, whatever my last exploration was will always be retained right here for me. So it makes it very easy for me to go through and identify the stocks that I need to test against. Okay, so let's go ahead. We've got our system test checked. We can see we have we have 19 instruments. Now over here, we can tell it again how we'd like to trade. If I trade long, I can set that. If I trade short, or if I trade both. Now, since I only looked for a long opportunity, if I had looked for both a long and a short, it might make sense to test both. But because I'm just looking for a long trade on this specific example, it'll be good for me to just test long because that matches my exploration. Then when I'm choosing my range, what I want to do is use a range that gives me a good idea of how it's performed over time. 2 years is a pretty good range. If you're a short-term trader, you can definitely take that down, or you can go even longer. If you want to see how it's performed over the entire history of the stock, you can do that as well. Okay, so set your time. You can also set specific date ranges, but we want to know kind of how this matches to today, since that's our current buy signal. So let's stick with use the last 500. We can set our interval. Now I scanned on daily, so I want to stick with daily. And now let's go into trade options and talk about trade options. What trade options allows us to do is set our real world scenarios in how we actually trade. Because there's a lot of different things that we do individually as traders that may make a difference in the way that something backtests, because each of us are different. So reporting, I would just basically leave this as a default. Let's go to account. So now under account, you have a few options. You can choose a points-only test. Now, points-only test is best if you are a futures or forex trader. That's where you want to use points only. If you're an equity trader, you can set in your equity and use it this way. This portion will ask you, how much money do you have in your trading account? Is it $1,000? Is it $1 million? Again, everybody's different, and that'll make a difference on how things can perform when they're testing. So let's go with the default here of $100,000. Percentage of available equity. So when you're setting this, basically what that's doing is it's saying, okay, if I have $100,000 in my account, how much am I willing to risk in that trade? So if I set 30%, obviously we're going to run about $30,000 in as part of our money. So that's all we're going to risk in each individual trade is $30,000. Now, if that money goes up to $200,000, it's still going to continue to risk 30%, but that now becomes $60,000. So that's something to keep in mind as it's doing the testing. Now, if you only trade X number of shares, so if let's say you only trade 100 units at a time, you can set 100 units or 1,000 units or 1 million units. Whatever it is, you can set that as part of it. Let's just run with percentage of available equity for this. Under the broker category, so what you can do is say if you're trading on margin, what's your margin percentage? If you're making money on a money market account, how much money are you making during that time if you're out of a trade? That's defaulted to 0 with the current market conditions. You can set in here if you want to put in broker entry. So if you're paying a commission to get into the trade and a commission to get out of the trade, you can put that in as part of your scenarios. Okay, so there's different options that you can set in here if you're saying paying a percentage of the transaction to get in and out. So there's a few different options there. And finally, trade execution. So this gives us some really good options here. Under this one, the default is to use realistic market prices. And what that really means to a trader is if I have a buy signal that I get today at the end of the market, when am I actually going to get into that trade? Well, usually it's the next day or the next bar. So that's what that is doing, and that's what is defaulted to. If you want to change that criteria, you can by unchecking this, and then it'll let you manipulate that and say, okay, I want to get in 2 bars later or 3 bars later. But if you just use the realistic market prices, it will use that default and then do that. Over here, it'll allow you to account for slippage. So if you want to say, allow me 3% or 1% or 0.5%, you can go in and put that in as part of your criteria as well. Okay, close all positions on the last bar. Definitely want to leave that checked as well. Leave quick tests unchecked, and then we'll move on and go forward. Now, if you need help or more details on any of these, click the help, and it'll take you through each of these and give you more details on how to use each one of these specifically if you have more questions on it, or refer to the Unleash the Power of MetaStock manual that I've put together for you so you can use that as a basis as well. So let's go ahead and choose OK. So now we have everything set. We can choose a summary again over here to view everything that we have selected. And let's go ahead and start our system test. So now it's running through each of those 19 stocks to see how they've performed. So if you watch the overview of the power tools, this screen looks a little bit differently. Now, the reason this looks different is because we've tested against multiple securities instead of one security. And so it's giving us more of an overview. So what I can quickly see here is a graphical representation of how these performed over time. So if I look at these, I can see that several of these were positive in nature over that period of time. I had a few that didn't perform very well. And then down here, I have a quick ranking that I can do. I have my instrument, the test ID, a symbol, what period I tested on, the date range. So you can see your date range here, net profit, percent gain, number of trades, how many were winners and losers, and average profit, average loss. So what I can see here is, let's rank on this. Let's rank based off of percent gain. Okay, so what I can see here is that Aetna had the best percent gain over time. And what I can do here, it's actually a nice little screen, because what you can do is you can already start to weed out what you want to look for. So let's just look at Aetna here as an example. So I had a net profit over that time of $8,748 or 8.75%. I had 24 trades, and that we did over 500 records. So it's about 2 years, 24 trades over 2 years. I had 9 winning trades, 15 losing trades. Well, but it's my best performing system, but I had more losing trades. So that already tells me that my winners were big and my losers were smaller. So that's something to definitely watch for and identify as part of your scenarios. And then my average profit had a pretty good average profit of 3.7. So what we can do then, let's just look at a few other ones here. Let's look at the bottom one, our poor performer. We've already weeded this one out probably. We don't want to look at this one because it didn't perform well over time. But we had a loss of $14,000, 60 trades, 21 winning trades, 39 losing trades. So that tells me that my losers were probably pretty big on that one. And I'll show you a little bit more about how to get into that. So far we like Aetna up here at the top. It's performed well. We've had some big winning trades, as we can tell, and we can go in and get into more detail. So let's look at the trade summary screen here and identify which one of these is going to be the best. So again, profit here, we had 8,748, buy and hold. So trade summary, we had total 24 trades, trade efficiency. Then down here we have our average profit. So about $1,800, highest profit, 4,000, 347 lowest. So we can do a comparison here against our unprofitable trades. So average loss is 478, highest loss 965, lowest 22. Now, one thing to consider as part of this, when we do this, we're not actually accounting for stops. We're just saying when the system says buy, buy, when the system says sell, sell. Okay, so it's basically saying, do the personalities of the system and the strategy match? Now, can you account for stops? Yes, but I won't be going into that in this video. That's through separate training that you can go through. But that is something that you can do as well. You can put in that opportunity. So we have our maximum excursions. Over here we have accounting, so we can see how much money we had in our account to start, how much money we actually made overall, how much we lost, and then what our final equity was. Now, in our test, we didn't put in commissions, but you could put in commissions. That would be credited against it here, so you can see how that affected it, what your trade timing is. And then here you have an order screen that shows you how all the orders were placed. Positions takes you through how each individual position was managed and taken over time. This one right here is the most important to me. And this one's called the equity line. Well, let's talk about an equity line and what an equity line is for a few minutes. So an equity line basically allows us to say, if I'm looking at my money over time, what is it doing? So if I look at this is my starting point, $100,000, if you'll remember. And what it does is it shows me the results of my money over time. So here I had a little bit of a drawdown, and drawdown is pullback, so we're losing money. So we lost a little bit of money there. We had a good run, and then what happened? After the run, it really kind of faded down. Now, you'll see flat periods here, and that usually indicates that you're out of the market and not in the market. So we kind of remained flat here, but in the last probably year, it looks like we have a good trade, kind of goes flat. Good trade, out of the market. Good trade, out of the market. Good trade, out of the market. So what I'm seeing here is a consistent run of good trades. And if I'm seeing a lot of good trades, that gives me a good indication that, hey, this is probably a pretty good stock to use with my system. Because what we're starting to see that matching of the personalities together. And if I can see that, it gives me a more powerful signal. Looking at this, it would give me a lot more confidence. Now, one of the issues that we have with backtesting is hindsight's 20/20. So if I were to look at this, yep, I can see exactly how it performed, exactly what it did. Does that tell me that my next trade is going to be 100%? Well, no. But what it does help me understand is that historically it has worked well, and that gives me a more confidence in the trade, in understanding the trade. It's not that I know it's going to be a 100% trade, I know it's going to be a winner. It's that I have a better confidence in the trade, that I feel more comfortable in taking that trade. And let's look a little bit more at some of the other equity lines to see how they look, to see if we can kind of get a pattern of what works, what doesn't. So let's just take a step back and just minimize this here for a second. And let's look at maybe Newfield here. Let's look at its equity line. Okay, whoop, excuse me. So let's go back and look at that report here. We can accidentally closed it. We can right click, go to report. Okay, and we can look at our most recent report right here. Okay, so that's that same report. So that's, if you ever accidentally close it, you need to get back to it. That's a good way to do it. Okay, let's look at Newfield here. Let's go ahead and open that one up. Double click on it. And what I'll usually do is go right to that equity line. Let's see how it's done. Well, if we look at this one over time, what do we see? We see great runs. We see it really going. We see it really working. But what's happened in more recently? We've had a really big pullback using this trading system. And what happens to stocks over time? They may change the way that they trade and the way that they actually move. So it may move from a trending stock into an oscillating stock. And suddenly MACD, which is a trending indicator, may not work anymore. And this might be a good indication of that. So this one already tells me, hey, this isn't probably something that I want to look at or trade. So let's go into maybe Netflix, because these are our top profitable ones. Again, what do we see? We see a really good run about a year and a half ago, and then really nothing. It's been up, down, and really down, up. So it starts to give me hesitation. So if I can say, this doesn't look like a powerful trade to me, I can just back off of it. Because that is one of the things as traders. Sometimes we have to have the confidence to not take a trade. And that's really one of the big things that we need to understand as traders, that these tools can help us identify good opportunities. So this one becomes an interesting one. So here's our initial equity, up, up. We had some small periods of drawdown, but recently, good run up, out of the market, good run up. Now it did have a pullback right here. Would that have been fixed with a good stop? Probably. So this could be a secondary one. I wouldn't be as confident in it. Let's maybe look at our most negative one to see what that looks like. Okay, so this looks exactly like what we don't want to see. So if we look at this, we have 100,000 start up, and then what does it do? It just has a nice, slow, steady decline. So as it's going down, we're going to say, you know what? This stock doesn't work with this. So then it allows me to pull back and say, okay, out of these 19, which one am I most confident in? And that would be Aetna, based off of the equity lines that I'm looking at. So you can go through and look at each of those equity lines, see which one matches the best for you, because the tools are designed to give you confidence and help you increase your odds of success. It's recommended to still use your stops to help you avoid that risk in the market, because that's going to be an important part of it. Okay, so now what can I do from here? So I know that I want to look at Aetna. So what we could do, let's go ahead and close out of the system tester, close out of here. Let's go to chart and let's just open up AET. So I have my expert advisor ready to attach right here. I can just go ahead and open up the chart. Okay, there's my buy signal right there. If I wanted to, I could also put on the MACD indicator. Let's go ahead and find our MACD. Put that on our chart. And we can also see there the trigger line. So now what we could do is we could attach the expert commentary, use this to help us manage the trade overall and walk through it. And hopefully use it to help us, again, increase our odds of success and confidence in the trades, to follow the rules and identify the best trading opportunity. So I hope you found this video informative, that you're able to navigate the backtester to help you identify opportunities and find ones that you have the most confidence in. Continue to use the other videos to help you identify different workflows that may work for you as well. In the next video, we'll be getting more into backtesting and how you can use multiple strategies against multiple systems to help identify which strategies may work best with different lists. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap up this video and move on to the next, more on backtesting.